Most people who say they're fluent in English are still using the same 40 words they learned 5 years ago. Tired, busy, good, bad, happy, sad. And they wonder why. The moment a native speaker opens their mouth, half the sentence disappears into thin air. Today, that changes. In the next few minutes, you're going to walk away with words that native speakers actually reach for. Not textbook words, not exam words, words people use at work, in relationships, in arguments, in everyday small talk. And you're going to use every single one of them before this video ends. I'm Sophie, and this is Natural Word English. If this is your first time here, what we do is simple. We don't hand you a list of 50 words and wish you luck. We take each word, drop it into a real situation, show you exactly how it sounds in a real sentence, and then we make you say it out loud, because a word you've only read is a word you'll forget by tomorrow, but a word you've spoken out loud, in context with your own voice, tends to stick. Here's the one idea I want you to hold on to for the rest of this lesson. Vocabulary that lives inside a story is vocabulary your brain actually keeps. If I just tell you that meticulous means careful and detailed, you'll nod and then you'll lose it within the hour. But if I tell you about someone who color codes his sock drawer and reads every contract twice before signing, and then I tell you that person is meticulous. Now, the word has a face. It has a place to live in your memory. That's the entire method. Context first, word second, your voice third. One more thing before we start. Every time I introduce a new word, I'll always tell you the simpler, more basic word it's quietly replacing. So instead of saying happy, today you might say elated. Instead of good idea, you might say a compelling idea. That's the upgrade we're going for, not fancier for the sake of fancy, but more precise, more natural, closer to how educated native speakers actually talk. All right, let's get into it. Picture this. It's 6:45 in the morning. The alarm has gone off twice already, and you're lying there in that strange, foggy space between sleep and awake. Your body feels heavy. Your thoughts are slow. That specific feeling, not quite awake, still a little foggy, moving through molasses, has a word for it, and it's a word most learners never touch. Groggy. Groggy is stronger and more specific than just tired. Tired can mean anything from mildly sleepy to completely exhausted. Groggy is very particular. It's that disoriented, sluggish state right after you wake up, or sometimes after medication, or after a long flight. Listen to how it sounds in a sentence. First slow, then at natural speed. I always feel groggy before my first coffee. Now at natural pace, I always feel groggy before my first coffee. Notice how feel groggy almost blends together. Feel groggy, the two words leaning into each other. That's called connected speech, and we're going to keep coming back to it. All through this lesson, because that blending is exactly what makes native English sound fast and smooth instead of choppy. Now, here's a mini dialogue. Picture two roommates in the kitchen. One already dressed, the other still in pajamas, staring blankly at the coffee machine. You look rough this morning. Yeah, I'm still groggy. I didn't sleep well. Did the coffee kick in yet? Not even close. Give me 10 more minutes. Take your time. There's no rush today. Thank God for that. Say that last line out loud. Thank God for that. With a little relief in your voice, like you really mean it. Good. Now, let's flip it. This time, you be the groggy roommate, and I'll play the other part. I'll say my line. And then I'll pause. When I pause, you answer as if you just woke up and you're still groggy. Ready? You look rough this morning. Now answer. Pause it if you need more time and say something like, yeah, I'm still groggy. I barely slept. Nice work if you got something close. To that, the exact words matter less than the habit of responding without translating in your head first. Let's move forward in the morning. Say you push through the grogginess. You get some coffee in you. And about 20 minutes later, something shifts. Your mind clears up. Your energy comes back. There's a word for that transition, too. And it's one of my favorites. Invigorating. Something invigorating makes you feel suddenly full of energy and life. Fresh, awake, alive. A cold shower can be invigorating. A brisk walk outside can be invigorating. Even a strong cup of coffee, for some people, is invigorating. Notice the word underneath it, that it's upgrading. Instead of just saying, it makes me feel awake, you say, it's invigorating. Instead of it woke me up, you say it was really invigorating. Here's the natural stress pattern, because this word has a specific rhythm, invigi or a ting. The stress lands hard on that second syllable. Try it slowly first, invig or a ting, and now at a natural, flowing pace, invigorating. Here's a short scene to place it in. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a lake, early in the morning, the water completely still, mist rising off the surface, and you decide, almost on impulse, to jump in. I can't believe you actually jumped in. Honestly, it was invigorating. My whole body just woke up. I would have stood there shivering for 10 minutes. That's exactly why you should try it. It's the best way to start the day. Maybe next time, I'll watch from here. Suit yourself. But you're missing out. Try saying, I would have stood there shivering for 10 minutes a little faster now. Notice how would have often collapses into something closer to would've, almost woulda in fast, casual speech. Listen to the difference. Slow. I would have stood there. Fast. Natural. I woulda stood there. Native speakers do this constantly in relaxed conversation, and once your ear catches it, you'll start hearing it everywhere. Where? Nice work, getting through that first block. You've already picked up 2 real, usable words before the video is even 10 minutes old. Progress you can actually feel. Let's shift the scene now. You've made it through your morning, you've had your invigorating coffee, and now you're walking into the office. So this next block is all about work, because if there's one place where basic vocabulary really shows, it's a professional setting. Imagine this. You open your laptop and your inbox has 47 new emails, 3 of them marked urgent, and your calendar is a solid wall of back-to-back meetings until 4 in the afternoon. That specific feeling of having far too much to handle, more than you can reasonably manage, has a word that's used constantly in workplaces: swamped. To be swamped means to be completely overwhelmed with work, buried in tasks, drowning in responsibilities. It's stronger than just busy. Busy can mean you have a few things to do. Swamped means you genuinely don't know how you're going to get through it all. Instead of saying, "I'm really busy today," a native speaker very often says, "I'm completely swamped." Say it with me. Natural pace. I'm swamped. Again, a little more emphasis. I am so swamped right now. Here's a longer dialogue for this one, because swamped comes up constantly between coworkers, and I want you to really absorb how naturally it flows into a real conversation. "Hey, do you have 5 minutes to look at this report?" "Honestly, I don't. I'm completely swamped this week." "That bad, huh?" "Yeah. I've got 3 deadlines colliding at once and a client call in 20 minutes. Do you want me to push the report to next week instead? That would actually be a huge help." "Thank you. No problem. Just try not to burn yourself out." "I'll do my best." Easier said than done, though. Now let's do that role switch technique. I'll read the first coworker's lines, and after each one, I want you to respond as the swamped coworker. Pause the video if you need to, and just try to get close to the meaning, not the exact words. Ready? "Hey, do you have 5 minutes to look at this report?" Good. Hopefully something like, "I don't. I'm swamped," came out. Let's continue. "That bad, huh? Do you want me to push it to next week?" You're building real, spontaneous response speed here, and that's a skill textbooks almost never train. When you're swamped, there's usually one skill that saves you, and it's another word worth knowing: prioritize. To prioritize means to decide what's most important and deal with that first, instead of trying to do everything at once. Instead of the basic phrase, "decide what to do first," a native speaker just says, "prioritize." Notice the stress. Prioritize, the emphasis landing on that second syllable. O-R, slow. Prioritize, natural. Prioritize. "I can't do everything today, so I need to prioritize." What's at the top of your list? The client call. Definitely. Everything else can wait. Smart. Don't spread yourself too thin. Notice that last phrase, "spread yourself too thin." That's a whole idiom meaning to try to do too many things at once and end up doing none of them well. Worth filing away for later. Let's add one more word to this block before we take a short breath. When someone handles a swamped, overwhelming workload really well: organized, calm, extremely careful about details. You don't just say, They're good at their job. You say they're meticulous. Someone meticulous pays extremely close attention to every small detail, double checks everything, never lets anything slip through the cracks. The basic word underneath it is just careful, but meticulous is careful. Turned up to an extreme, careful as a personality trait. Picture someone who reads every line of a contract twice, who color codes their calendar, at UB calendar, cat, UB, who notices a single typo in a 40-page document. That person is meticulous. How did you catch that error? It was buried on page 38. I'm just meticulous about this stuff. I read everything twice. Well, it saved us a huge headache. Thank you. That's exactly why I do it. Say the word slowly first to lock in the sound. Meticulous. And now naturally, meticulous. Okay. Let's pause the pace here for just a moment. The way we sometimes do on this channel. Not a full break. Just a chance to let your mind settle before we keep building. Close your eyes for 3 seconds, if you can, while you're listening. Breathe in, breathe out. You've already added 5 strong, real, usable words to your English in the last few minutes. Groggy, invigorating, swamped, prioritize, meticulous. That's not nothing. That's real vocabulary growth, and you earned it by staying with me through actual context instead of a dry list. All right, eyes open, energy back up. Let's keep going, because we're just getting started, and there's a lot more waiting for you in this lesson. Let's move into emotions now, because this is where basic English really falls apart for most learners. When something upsetting happens, most people only have one word ready, sad, and native speakers actually have a huge range of feeling words that are far more specific and far more common in real conversation than people expect. Let's set the scene. Imagine you've been working towards something for months, a promotion, a project, a goal, and at the last moment, it falls through. Not devastating, not the end of the world, but that heavy, disappointed, slightly hopeless feeling settles in. There's a word for that specific emotional weight. Drained. To feel drained means to feel like all your energy, all your emotional strength has been used up, completely depleted, empty, worn out. It's physical and emotional at the same time. Instead of "I'm really tired," instead of even "I'm sad," you say, "I feel completely drained." Try the sound. Drained. One clean syllable. The I sound stretched just slightly. Drained. You seem really quiet today. Is everything okay? Honestly, I'm just drained. It's been a rough week. Do you want to talk about it? Or would you rather just sit for a bit? Can we just sit for a bit? I don't have the energy to talk it through right now. Of course. Take all the time you need. Thanks. I really appreciate you not pushing. Now here's a quick listening skill for you, because this connects directly to something native speakers do constantly. They don't always catch every single word when someone talks fast, and neither should you. When someone's speaking quickly and you miss a piece of it, You don't need to stop and ask them to repeat everything. You just catch the main idea and respond naturally with something like, I see. That makes sense. Or simply, right. Try that now. Imagine someone rushing through an explanation a little too fast for you to catch every word, and your only job is to respond with a natural filler that shows you're still following the general idea, even if a few words got away from you. Right. I see. That makes sense. These 3 tiny responses will carry you through more real conversations than any grammar rule ever will. Let's flip drained around to its opposite. Picture the moment right after you finally finish something huge. A big project, a difficult exam, a hard conversation you'd been avoiding for weeks. That sudden lightness, that burst of pure happiness, isn't just happy. It's elated. Elated means extremely happy, thrilled, practically overflowing with joy. Instead of saying, I'm so happy, a native speaker in a strong emotional moment says, I'm elated. I just found out I got the job. Wait, seriously? Congratulations! I'm absolutely elated. I've been waiting for this call for weeks. You totally deserve it. How are you feeling right now? Honestly, still a little in shock, but mostly just elated. Let's celebrate this weekend. My treat. Deal. I'm not turning that down. That's fantastic progress. You're already moving fluidly between drained and elated, 2 emotional opposites, and using both of them in full natural conversations. That's exactly the kind of range that separates an intermediate speaker from someone who actually sounds fluent. There's one more emotion word I want to give you before we close this block, because it captures something very specific that basic English completely misses. Imagine you're about to walk into a job interview, or step on stage, or have a difficult conversation with someone important to you. Not quite scared, not quite nervous. Something in between. A low, quiet, worried anticipation about what's coming. That feeling is apprehensive. Apprehensive means feeling anxious or worried about something that's about to happen. Usually because you're unsure how it will turn out. The stress falls like this. Apprehensive. Slow first. Apprehensive. Now natural. Apprehensive. How are you feeling about tomorrow's presentation? Honestly, a little apprehensive. I've never presented to this many people before. That's completely normal. You know the material better than anyone in that room. I know logically. It just doesn't feel that way right now. Once you start talking, the nerves usually fade fast. Trust me. I hope you're right. Now, before we move to the next block, here's a small self-practice exercise, and this one is important. Don't skip it. I want you to look around wherever you are right now and describe it out loud using your senses and try to work in at least one of today's words. Something like, there's a window beside me. I can hear traffic outside. I feel a little apprehensive about how much English I still need to learn, but also a little elated that I've made it this far. Pause the video and actually say your own version out loud right now. This tiny habit, narrating your surroundings and feelings in English, is exactly what turns passive vocabulary into an automatic reflex you carry and into your actual life. And into your actual life. Great work staying with me this far. We've built a real solid foundation. Groggy, invigorating, swamped, prioritize, meticulous, drained, elated, apprehensive. 8 strong words, all fully alive inside real scenes and real conversations, not floating alone on a page. There's a lot more ahead. Personality, travel, technology, disagreements, and a full round at the end where we race back through everything you've learned. Type 1 now, and let's keep building. Let's keep the momentum going, because personality is where this vocabulary really starts to shine. These are the words that let you describe people precisely instead of just calling everyone nice or mean. Think about someone in your life who never backs down from a plan, who commits fully to something and pushes through no matter how hard it gets. That's not just hardworking. There's a sharper word for it: tenacious. Someone tenacious holds on tightly to a goal and refuses to give up, even when things get difficult, even when it would be easier to quit. The word underneath it, the basic one it's replacing, is simply determined, but tenacious carries more grit, more stubborn persistence inside it. Say the stress pattern with me. T. Nay. Nucious. The weight landing hard on that middle syllable. Slow first. Tenacious. Natural. Tenacious. Here's a scene. Imagine a runner training for a marathon through months of rain and injury and exhaustion, refusing to stop. I don't know how you kept training through that injury. I'm just tenacious, I guess. Quitting never really felt like an option. Most people would have given up after the first setback. Honestly, there were nights I wanted to, but something in me just wouldn't let go of the goal. Well, it clearly paid off. You crossed that finish line. Barely. But I crossed it. Now switch roles with me. I'll read the first speaker's lines, and you respond as the tenacious runner. Pause after each of mine and answer in your own words. I don't know how you kept training through that injury. Most people would have given up after the first setback. You don't need perfect grammar here. You just need the reflex of responding without translating first. And that reflex is exactly what's growing stronger every time you do this. Now flip to the opposite kind of personality. Picture someone who says whatever comes into their head, completely honest, times uncomfortably so. No filter between thought and speech. There's a precise word for that: blunt. To be blunt means to speak very directly and honestly without softening your words to protect someone's feelings. Instead of saying, he's very honest, you might say, he's incredibly blunt, and the tone shifts. Blunt has a slight edge to it. Honest, but almost too honest. Did you tell her what you really thought of the proposal? Yeah, probably too bluntly. Honestly, what did you say? I told her the whole thing needed to be rebuilt from scratch. Ouch. How did she take it? Better than I expected, actually. She said she'd rather hear the truth than false praise. Notice the connected speech in probably too bluntly. In fast natural speech, probably often shrinks down to something closer to probably, 2 syllables instead of 3. Slow, probably. Fast, natural. Prob. One more personality word before we move locations, and this one's incredibly useful because it describes something almost everyone's secretly admires. Think of someone who stays completely calm under pressure, who doesn't panic in a crisis, whose presence alone makes a stressful room feel more manageable. That's someone who is composed. To be composed means to stay calm, controlled, and steady, especially in a difficult or stressful situation. The basic word it upgrades is just calm, but composed adds this extra layer. Calm, specifically under pressure, calms on purpose. How were you so composed during that meeting? The client was furious. Years of practice. Honestly, panicking never solves anything in the moment. I would have completely fallen apart. You'd be surprised what you can handle once you've been through it a few times. Say it slowly. Calm, PMOP, P-O-S-D. And now naturally, letting the 2 syllables blend a bit. Composed. You're doing genuinely excellent work. Tenacious, blunt, composed. 3 sharp, specific personality words, and you can already feel how much more precisely you could describe the real people in your life using just these 3. Let's change locations completely now. Imagine you've landed in a new city, somewhere you've never been before, stepping out of the airport into unfamiliar streets, a new language buzzing around you, the smell of food you don't recognize drifting from a nearby stall. Travel vocabulary is some of the most practical language you'll ever learn because it comes up the moment you step outside your comfort zone. Let's start with a word for that overwhelming, slightly disoriented feeling of being somewhere completely new. Disorienting. Something disorienting confuses your sense of direction or understanding, makes you feel a bit lost, unsteady, unsure which way is up. A new city with unfamiliar streets can be disorienting. Jet lag can be disorienting. Even a very fast, unfamiliar accent can be disorienting. How was your first day in Tokyo? Honestly, a little disorienting. Everything's in a different alphabet, and I kept getting turned around. Did you manage to find your hotel okay? Eventually, yeah, after asking 3 different people for directions. That's the adventure of it. Though, right? Ask me again once I've had some sleep. Now here's a longer role play, and I want you to really sink into this one, because navigating a foreign city with limited language is exactly the kind of pressure-tested situation where advanced vocabulary actually earns its place. Danen. Imagine you're standing on a street corner, completely lost, phone battery nearly dead, and you approach a stranger for help. Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I think I'm a bit turned around. Could you point me toward the train station? Of course. You're actually not too far. Go straight for 2 blocks, then take a left at the pharmacy. straight for 2 blocks, then left at the pharmacy. Got it. Exactly. You'll see the station entrance right after that, on your right. Thank you so much. This city's a little disorienting for someone new. Don't worry. Everyone feels that way the first day or two. You'll get the hang of it fast. I really hope so. Thanks again for your help. Pause here and try that entire exchange yourself, playing both roles if you want, or just the traveler asking for directions. This kind of extended, multi-turn dialogue is exactly the format you'll actually face in real travel situations. Not 2 short lines, but a real back-and-forth exchange with follow-up questions. Here's a second travel word, and it's one that instantly makes you sound more fluent the moment you use it correctly. Hospitable. A hospitable place or a hospitable person is warm, welcoming, generous toward guests and strangers. Instead of just saying, "The people were nice," you say, "The people were incredibly hospitable," and it immediately communicates something richer. Warmth, generosity, genuine welcome. How was the trip overall? Amazing. The locals were unbelievably hospitable. Honestly, a family invited us Essen for dinner on our second night. That's so rare these days. You must have felt really lucky. We did. It completely changed how I saw the whole country. Notice the stress. Hospitable, the weight sitting on that second syllable. Slow, hospitable. Natural, hospitable. Let's shift now into a completely different world, technology. This cluster of vocabulary matters enormously right now because so much of daily conversation at work and at home revolves around apps, devices, and digital frustration. Imagine your laptop freezing in the middle of an important video call, BSS. The screen frozen on your most unflattering facial expression. Everyone waiting in awkward silence. That specific, modern frustration has its own precise word. Glitchy. Something glitchy behaves unpredictably, malfunctions in small, annoying ways, doesn't quite work the way it's supposed to. Instead of, "It's not working right," you say, "It's being really glitchy today." Is your camera doing that again? Yeah, it's been glitchy all morning. It keeps freezing every few minutes. Have you tried restarting it? Twice already. I think it might just be a bad connection. Let's try switching you to audio only for now. Good call. At least you'll still hear me clearly. Here's a second tech word, one that describes something almost everyone has felt, but rarely has the exact vocabulary for. Seamless. Something seamless works so smoothly, so effortlessly, that you barely even notice the process happening. No bumps, no interruptions, completely fluid. The opposite of glitchy, essentially. How was setting up the new system? Honestly, it's seamless. It synced everything automatically, no issues at all. That's a relief. The last update was a nightmare. I know. This one's a completely different experience. Barely had to think about it. Say it with me, letting the 2 syllables flow into each other smoothly, fittingly enough. Seamless. Seamless. You've now built an incredible range in this lesson. Personality words, travel words, technology words, 12 strong pieces of vocabulary sitting solidly in your memory because every single one of them arrived, wrapped inside a real scene, a real voice, a real conversation. That's not an accident. That's the entire method working exactly the way it's supposed to. Let's move into something a little more advanced now. Expressing opinions and handling disagreement, because this is genuinely one of the hardest things to do gracefully in a second language. And it's exactly where C1 to C2 level speakers separate themselves from everyone else. Picture a meeting where two colleagues completely disagree about which direction a project should take. Neither one is angry, but the tension in the room is obvious. When you don't just casually disagree, but strongly, firmly object to something, there's a specific word for it: adamant. To be adamant means to be completely firm and unwilling to change your position, refusing to budge no matter how much pushback you get. I really think we should adamant about launching next month, not delaying again. Wait, let me actually give you that correctly. Because adamant is an adjective, so it needs be in front of it. I'm adamant that we should launch next month, not delay again. I hear you, but I'm adamant that we need more testing time first. We've already delayed twice. At some point, we have to commit to a date. I understand the pressure, but I'd rather delay a third time than launch something broken. Fair point. Let's at least agree on a firm final deadline. Then, that I can absolutely agree to. Notice how that disagreement stayed completely respectful the entire time. No raised voices, no personal attacks, just two firm, adamant positions. Meeting in the middle through calm, direct language. That's exactly the tone C1 to C2 English aims for in professional disagreement. Here's a phonetic note worth pausing on. Listen to the natural rise and fall in. I'm adamant that we need more testing time first. The voice rises slightly on adamant, almost like a small emphasis peak, then settles down through the rest of the sentence. Try saying it with that same rise and fall. I'm adamant that we need more testing time. Let's add a softer word to balance adamant, because not every disagreement needs to be that firm. Sometimes you just want to gently, carefully suggest that you're not entirely convinced without shutting the conversation down. For that, native speakers often reach for a phrase built around the word skeptical. To be skeptical means to have doubts, to not be fully convinced something is true or will work, without necessarily rejecting it. Right. What do you think about the new marketing plan? Honestly, I'm a little skeptical. The numbers seem optimistic. What specifically worries you? Mainly the timeline. I don't think 3 weeks is realistic for something this. That's fair. Maybe we build in some extra buffer time, just in case. That would definitely ease my concerns. Try this role switch with me now. I'll play the person presenting the marketing plan, and you respond as the skeptical colleague. Pause. after each of my lines and answer, honestly, in your own words, using skeptical, if you can. What do you think about the new marketing plan? What specifically worries you? Notice how naturally skeptical fits into disagreement, is without ever sounding rude or aggressive. That's exactly the tone you want to build. One final word for this block, and it's a beautiful one for closing out any disagreement gracefully. When two people who disagreed manage to reach a shared solution that satisfies both sides, that's a compromise. But here I want to give you the adjective form too, because native speakers love saying someone is being reasonable in a negotiation, and a stronger, more precise word for that is conciliatory. A conciliatory tone or attitude tries to end a disagreement peacefully, showing a willingness to give ground and find common ground. After all that back and forth, how did the meeting end? Actually, pretty well. Once we both took a more conciliatory approach, things moved fast. So, you found a middle ground? We did. I gave up on the strict deadline. She gave up on the extra testing phase. Everyone walked away satisfied. Fantastic work pushing through this block. Adamant, skeptical, conciliatory. These three words alone will completely transform how confidently and how gracefully you can handle real disagreement in English, whether that's at work, with friends, or navigating a tricky negotiation. Let's pause the intensity here again. For just a moment, the way we did earlier, before we move into education and a few final rounds of vocabulary. Settle your shoulders. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out. You've now built an enormous, genuinely usable vocabulary bank in this single session. Groggy, invigorating, swamped, prioritize, meticulous, drained, elated, apprehensive, tenacious, blunt, composed, disorienting, hospitable, glitchy, seamless, adamant, skeptical, conciliatory. 18 real words, all fully alive, all tied to real people and real moments. Sit with that for a second. That's a genuinely impressive amount of progress for one sitting. Now, before we head into the next section, let's talk properly about shadowing, because I've mentioned repeating after me several times already, but true shadowing is a slightly different, more powerful technique, and I want you to actually understand it. Not just do it by accident. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and repeating it back almost instantly, like an echo, while the sound is still fresh in your ear. Not waiting until the sentence fully finishes, but letting your voice trail just slightly behind mine, almost overlapping. It trains your mouth and your ear to move at native speed together, instead of translating first and speaking second. Let's try it properly right now. I'll say a sentence slowly, and I want you to start repeating almost immediately after me, echoing as closely as you can to the rhythm, not just the words. I'm completely swamped this week. Now you, echoing right behind. Try to match not just the words, but the rise and fall, the rhythm, the exact stress pattern. Type 1 to continue. And we'll move straight into education. More real-life role play, and a full shadowing and listening block designed to sharpen your ear even further. Let's move into education. Vocabulary. Now, because this is a cluster almost every learner needs, whether you're a student yourself or a parent or someone constantly learning new skills at work. Imagine sitting in a lecture hall, notebook open, and the professor says something that completely reshapes how you understand a topic, not just new information, but a genuine shift in perspective. There's a precise word for that kind of learning moment: insightful. Something insightful shows deep, accurate understanding, offering a perspective you hadn't considered before. Instead of just saying, "That was interesting," you say, "That was incredibly insightful." What did you think of the guest lecture today? Honestly, one of the most insightful talks I've sat through all semester. What made it stand out? She connected two theories I'd always seen as completely separate, changed how I think about the whole subject. Now I'm annoyed. I skipped it. You really should have gone. I'll send you my notes at least. Say the stress with me. Insightful, the weight landing on that middle syllable. Slow, insightful. Natural, insightful. Here's a second education word, and it describes something every student has felt at some point. The moment when a difficult concept, something you'd been struggling with for weeks, suddenly clicks into place. There's a phrase for that exact sensation built around the word grasp. To grasp something means to understand it fully, to mentally take hold of a concept after real effort, instead of, "I finally understood it." A more natural, native phrasing is, "I finally grasped it." How's the new statistics course going? Rough at first, but I think I finally grasped the core concept last week. What clicked for you? My professor used a real example instead of just formulas. Once I saw it applied, it just made sense. That's usually how it works for me too. Theory alone never sticks. Exactly. Context changes everything. Notice something there. That phrase, "context changes everything," is almost exactly the philosophy behind this entire lesson. Words stick when they're wrapped inside a real moment, not floating alone. Let's do a longer role play here, because education vocabulary comes up constantly in mentorship and tutoring situations, and I want you to feel that flow fully. Imagine you're a tutor and your student has just failed a difficult exam and is feeling discouraged. "I completely bombed that exam. I don't think I'm cut out for this subject." Hold on. Before we go there, what specifically confused you the most? Honestly, the whole second half. "I never fully grasped the material, and I panicked." That's actually really useful information. It means the problem's specific, not that you're incapable. I guess. It just felt overwhelming in the moment. Let's break the second half down together, piece by piece, starting today. I think you'll find it's far more manageable than it felt in that exam. Room. Okay, I'm willing to try that. Pause the video now and try playing the discouraged student yourself, responding honestly in your own words, using at least one of today's words if you can work it in naturally. Now, let's spend some real time on connected speech and rhythm, because I promised you several detailed moments on this throughout the lesson. And this is exactly the block for it. One of the most common patterns in fast native English is that certain small words practically disappear, absorbed into the words around them. Take the phrase, "What do you think?" Spoken slowly, you'd hear each word clearly. What do you think? But at natural native speed, it collapses into something closer to what do you think. Listen to both side by side. Slow. What do you think? Fast. Natural. What do you think? Try saying both yourself. Slow first, then fast. Here's another one, and it's everywhere in real conversation. Did you eat yet? Slow. Each word distinct. Did you eat yet? At natural speed, it often becomes something close to, did ya eat yet? Slow. Did you eat yet? Fast. Did ya eat yet? And a third pattern, this one about rising and falling intonation rather than blending. In a genuine yes or no question, the voice rises at the end. Are you coming? Pitch climbing on that last word. But in a statement, even one phrased as a question in tone, the voice falls. You're coming, right? Falling slightly at the end, almost expecting agreement rather than genuinely asking. Try both. Rising. Are you coming? Falling, almost assuming yes. You're coming, right? This kind of ear training might feel small, but it's exactly what separates someone who's technically correct from someone who actually sounds natural. Keep noticing this pattern in everything you listen to from now on. English, shows, podcasts, conversations. And you'll be amazed how quickly your ear starts catching it automatically. Let's add 2 final vocabulary words before we move into our closing rounds, both on fused and fusa, both from the confused words category, because these two get mixed up constantly, even by advanced learners. And getting them right instantly signals a much higher level of English. The first pair is affect and effect. Affect is almost always a verb, meaning to influence or change something. The rain affected our plans. Affect is almost always a noun, meaning the result of that influence. The rain had a huge effect on our plans. Listen to the difference in a full sentence. Lack of sleep can affect your concentration. Now the noun form. Lack of sleep has a serious effect on your concentration. Try saying both yourself, slowly, noticing which one is the action and which one is the result. The second pair just as commonly confused. Compliment and compliment. Compliment and compliment. A compliment with an I is a nice thing you say about someone. She gave me a compliment on my presentation. A compliment with an E means something that completes or pairs perfectly with something else. That wine really complements the meal. Say both in full sentences. He complimented my work. Different meaning entirely. His skills complement mine perfectly on this project. You've now built an extraordinary vocabulary bank across this entire lesson. 22 genuinely usable, precise, native-level words and word pairs, every single one of them tied to a real scene, a real conversation, a real voice. That is not a small achievement. That is real structural growth in your English. Now let's bring it all together with our fluency round. This is the moment where we race back through everything. No long explanations, just rapid recall, one word after another, building speed and confidence. Ready? Say each word out loud the instant you hear it. Don't overthink, just react. Groggy, invigorating, swamped, prioritize, meticulous, drained, elated, apprehensive, tenacious, blunt, composed, disorienting, hospitable, glitchy, seamless, adamant, skeptical, conciliatory, insightful, grasp, affect, compliment, compliment. Now, one more round, faster, in full sentences this time, and I want you to say these along with me, out loud, right now, no pausing. I was groggy this morning, but the cold air was invigorating. I'm swamped at work, so I need to prioritize. She's meticulous, but honestly, I'm just drained. I felt apprehensive at first, then completely elated. He's tenacious, blunt, but always composed under pressure. The new city felt disorienting, but the people were so hospitable. My laptop's glitchy, but the new update feels seamless. I'm adamant about this, even though you're clearly skeptical. Let's find a conciliatory solution instead. That lecture was so insightful, I finally grasped the whole concept. Beautifully done. That's the sound of real, active, usable fluency, not memorized theory, but words that actually move through full, connected sentences at natural speed. Here's your call to action, and I want you to actually do this, not just nod along. Pick exactly one word from today's lesson. Just one. And write a sentence about your own real life in the comments below, using that word correctly. Not a random example, your actual life. Are you feeling groggy right now? Swamped this week? Meticulous about something specific? Put it in the comments. I read every single one, and nothing helps a word stick in your memory faster than using it about something true. Before you go, one more thing worth trying on your own away from this video entirely. Later today, whenever you find a quiet moment, look around wherever you are and narrate it out loud in English. The same way we practiced earlier, working in as many of today's words as you naturally can. It feels a little strange the first time. It works extraordinarily well by the 10th. You've done real serious work today. This wasn't a passive video you sat through. This was active practice. Real sentences, real conversations, real words, entering your actual vocabulary, one context at a time. That's exactly how fluency gets built. Not overnight, but one solid, well-placed word after another. I'll see you in the next lesson.